Once upon a time, in a quiet village nestled at the foot of some low mountains, lived a brave and kind-hearted girl whose name was Elara. She was known throughout the village for her gentle spirit and her unwavering bravery whenever anyone or anything was in peril. One day a rumor began to spread among the villagers that sent shivers down their spines and filled their hearts with dread. They spoke in hushed tones about a fearsome giant who made his home deep within the dark and shadowy forest that bordered their peaceful village. The giant was said to be a creature of immense power and terrifying appearance, and his mere presence sent a chill through the bravest of souls. As the days went by, the fear grew, taking root in the minds of the villagers and causing them to cower in their homes. But amidst this wave of terror, Elara remained unfazed. While her fellow villagers trembled at the mere mention of the giant, she felt a surge of curiosity that outweighed their fear. Determined to uncover the truth, Elara decided to venture into the very heart of the forest to find the giant and discover the reality behind the terrifying tales. Now, the forest was a place that most of the villagers avoided. It was dense and dark, with gnarled trees and thick undergrowth that seemed to conspire against anyone who dared to enter its depths. However, Elara, armed with nothing but her courage and a pure heart, ventured forth into the unknown, her steps echoing her determination to uncover the truth. As she journeyed deeper into the forest, the trees grew darker, and the shadows seemed to dance ominously around her. Just when her spirits began to flag and the weight of the villagers' fears threatened to consume her, she heard a sound that made her stop in her tracks. It was the sound of a mournful cry, a deep and resonant sound that seemed to echo the loneliness of the forest itself. Drawn by an inexplicable force, Elara followed the sound until she came to a clearing, and what she saw there left her both amazed and filled with compassion. In the center of the clearing stood the giant, just as the villagers had described, a colossal figure with skin like weathered stone and eyes that shone with a deep sadness. His shoulders stooped as if burdened by a heavy load, and his gaze was fixed on the ground. At first, terror threatened to overwhelm Elara, but as she watched the giant, she noticed that his massive hands were tightly clenched, and his chest heaved with each deep sigh, betraying the turmoil of emotions raging within him. It was then that Elara realized that behind his fearsome exterior, the giant was not the monster the villagers had made him out to be. Taking a deep breath to steady herself, Elara stepped out of the tree line, her voice trembling slightly as she called out to the giant, "Hello!" The giant started at her presence, his eyes widening in surprise. For a moment, there was silence, broken only by the rustling of the leaves overhead. Then, in a voice that rumbled like distant thunder, he asked, "Who are you?" Elara, summoning all her courage, stepped closer. "I'm Elara from the village," she said, "and I came to see you because I think the villagers have been wrong about you." The giant shook his head slowly, his eyes clouding over with sadness. "They fear me," he said, his voice heavy with despair. "And I understand their fear, for I am different from other men. But I would rather be alone than be feared and misunderstood." Touched by his words, Elara sat down on a nearby log. "I don't fear you," she told him, "and maybe I can help the villagers understand you better. May I ask why you live in the forest?" The giant hesitated, then sighed. "Long ago," he began, his voice cracking with emotion, "I tried to help the village, but my size and strength frightened them, and they banished me to the forest. Now they tell tales of my monstrous appearance, and I am nothing but a shadow of my former self." As he spoke, Elara saw tears welling up in his giant eyes. It broke her heart to realize that such a gentle soul could be so misunderstood. Determined to help the giant, Elara spent every day she could in the forest with him. She brought him food and listened patiently as he shared his stories. Over time, A unique bond formed between the young girl and the giant, one that transcended their physical differences and touched the deepest parts of their hearts. The giant, in turn, became a father figure to Elara, teaching her about the secrets of the forest and the importance of inner strength. One day, while Elara was visiting the giant, a panicked shout carried through the forest. It was a cry of distress that sent chills down her spine. Without hesitation, she turned and ran towards the village, the giant's words echoing in her ears. When she reached the village, she found the townspeople gathered in the town square, their faces pale with fear. Their worst nightmare was coming true. The river that had been a source of life for the village had overflown its banks, sending a torrent of water crashing towards their homes. The villagers were trapped, their houses surrounded by rising waters, and their cries for help echoed through the now flooded streets. With the river surging ever closer to her home, Elara knew she had to act fast. She raced back to the forest, her heart pounding in her chest. There she found the giant, his massive frame silhouetted against the stormy sky. "You must help us," she cried, her voice filled with urgency. "The river has flooded the village. Our houses are going underwater and the villagers are trapped." The giant's eyes widened with alarm. Without a word, he rose to his full height, his towering form shaking with newfound purpose. With Elara guiding the way, the giant moved swiftly towards the village, his long strides eating up the distance between them and the stricken town. As the giant approached the flooded village, the sight that greeted him was both heartbreaking and inspiring. The river had indeed overflown its banks, transforming the quaint town into a scene of chaos and despair. Homes that were once filled with laughter and light were now surrounded by water, their inhabitants trapped and fearful. Yet even in the face of this overwhelming disaster, the villagers had not lost hope. They were banding together, helping wherever they could, and their collective determination shone through the darkness. The giant's heart swelled with compassion. Despite the villagers' previous mistreatment of him, he felt an overwhelming sense of responsibility to help them in their time of need. Taking a deep breath, he sprang into action, his strength now focused on saving those who had shunned him for so long. Guided by Elara's knowledge of the village and her unwavering bravery, the giant began his heroic task. First, he used his incredible strength to clear away debris from the flooded roads, creating pathways for the villagers to escape the rising waters. Then, with gentle care, he helped carry the belongings of those who had been forced to flee their homes, ensuring that nothing of value was left behind. As the giant worked tirelessly to save the village, the villagers looked on in awe and gratitude. Their fear and prejudice against him had vanished, replaced by admiration and respect. They cheered his name, their voices echoing their newfound appreciation for the gentle giant who had come to their rescue. Seeing the villagers' transformation, Elara felt a surge of happiness. She had known that the giant had a good heart, and now everyone else could see it too. Together, the giant and Elara worked throughout the night, their efforts bringing light into the darkness that had fallen upon the village. By the time the sun began to rise, the giant had saved everyone, and the village, though battered, was safe. When the first rays of sunlight touched the horizon, the giant's strength began to fade. With a final surge of effort, he waded into the river and pulled the last of the villagers to safety. As the villagers looked around at the damage that had been done, their hearts were heavy with sorrow. But amidst the devastation, they saw something that filled them with hope. The giant, despite his own weariness, was standing tall, his eyes shining with kindness. The villagers understood that they had been wrong about him. He wasn't a monster to be feared, but a hero to be celebrated. From that day forward, the giant was no longer an outcast. The villagers welcomed him back into their community, their fear and prejudice replaced by admiration and respect. He became a beloved member of their society, his strength and kindness always there to help those in need. And Elara, who had played a pivotal role in bringing them together, was hailed as a hero. As the village slowly rebuilt itself, the giant and Elara continued their friendship. They spent their days exploring the forest, their laughter echoing through the trees, and their nights sharing stories around the warm hearth in the giant's cozy home. The giant, no longer alone, was surrounded by friends who appreciated him for who he truly was. In the end, the village learned a valuable lesson. They discovered that appearances could be deceiving, and that true friendship could blossom in the most unexpected places. And as the years passed, the story of the brave girl who befriended a giant became a legend, reminding everyone who heard it to look beyond physical differences and embrace the power of kindness and understanding.